The Pechin is an Okinawan term from the scholar officials class of the former Ryūkyū Kingdom, the class equivalent of the Japanese samurai. Though initially culturally different, by the 19th century these feudal scholar officials of the Ryūkyū Kingdom would eventually call themselves samurai. In the last couple hundred years of the existence of the Ryūkyū Kingdom, there was a strong push to make Ryūkyū more Japanese, and gradually displace the native language, customs and culture. The once culturally distinct Ryūkyū warrior gradually become more Japanese to the extent that they adopted Bushido. In Japanese documents from the 19th century it is common to find that the Pechin are simply addressed as samurai, making no distinction to any cultural differences. Okinawan caste system. The Pechin were part of a complex caste system that existed in Okinawa for centuries. They were the feudal scholar officials class that was charged with enforcing the law and providing military defense to the nation. Ryūkyū Kingdom. The specific rank of a samurai was noted by the color of his hat. Okinawan caste system. Royalty, Sho family. Oji, prince. Aji or Ng, descendant of prince, cadet branch of royal house. Shizoku's scholar officials. Uikata or Oyakata, Lord Pechin. Pikumi, Upper Pechin. Satunushi Pechin, Middle Pechin. Chikudun Pechin, Lower Pechin. Satunushi, Upper Page. Chikudun, Lower Page. Hymen, commoners. The Pechin class was also responsible for the development of and training in the traditional fighting style called T, which developed into modern-day karate. The Ryūkyū Pechin kept the fighting techniques secret, usually passing down the most devastating fighting forms to only one member of the family per generation, usually the eldest son. This scholar official class became part of the caste system in Okinawa. Placed in the upper class, the Pechin would often travel with a servant at the side. The unarmed Ryūkyū scholar officials. The first time that the Pekin's weapons were confiscated was during the reign of King Shōjigin, who centralized the Ryūkyū Kingdom by forcing the Aji to leave the respective Magiri and move to Shuri. He confiscated weapons from commoners and Pechin who weren't part of the Ryūkyuan military to lower the possibility of rebellion. The second time that the Pechin were disarmed was after the invasion of 1609 by Satsuma domain, which prohibited the carrying of weapons by the Pechin. The Pechin were not completely without weapons, however. Historians in Okinawa have recovered documents that state that Satsuma outlawed the ownership and sale of firearms in Okinawa, but the Pechin class and above were allowed to keep firearms that were already in the family's possession. Toshihiro Oshiro, historian and Okinawan martial arts master, states, there is further documentation that in 1613 the Satsuma issued permits for the Ryūkyū samurai to travel with their personal swords to the smith sand polishes in Kagoshima, Japan for maintenance and repair. For the issuance of these permits, it is logical to infer that there were restrictions on the Ryūkyū samurai carrying the weapons in public, but it is also clear evidence that these weapons were not confiscated by the Satsuma. Meiji period. Undoubtedly the Pechin class was the hardest hit by the changing times. They were the only class that did not have a clear place in the modern world. In 1872, the Japanese Meiji government abolished the Ryūkyū Kingdom and created the Ryūkyū domain. In 1879, the Meiji government abolished the Ryūkyū domain and created Okinawa Prefecture. Public proclamation by Chief Secretary Matsuda of Ryūkyū-han because the imperial decree issued in Meiji 8th year has not been complied with. The government was compelled to abolish the feudal clan. The former feudal lord, his family and kin will be accorded princely treatment, and the persons of citizens, Ryūkyū samurai, The hereditary stipends, property and business interests will be dealt with in a manner as close to traditional customs as is possible. Any acts of maladministration, and exorbitant taxes and dues levied during the regime of the former clan government will probably be righted upon careful consideration. Do not be misled by irresponsible rumors. All are advised to pursue their respective occupations with ease of mind. The hereditary lords of the Ryūkyū Kingdom were strongly opposed to the complete annexation by Japan, but the Ryūkyūan king forbade the Pechin and aristocracies from fighting the annexation. Ryūkyū submitted to Japan's annexation plans, and 300 lords, 2,000 aristocratic families and the king were removed from the positions of power. However, to avoid an armed revolt in Okinawa, as had happened in Japan, special ceremonies were performed for the Pechin class, where they were permitted to honorably accept defeat and ritually cut off the hair. In Okinawa, the scholar official class lost a major source of income in 1903, when massive peasant protests sparked land reforms and the abolition of peasant taxes that sustained the Pechin. Many Pechin found themselves having to reveal the secret unarmed fighting techniques to commoners for income and to keep some element of status. Many Okinawan karate styles list in the genealogy karate masters of the Pechin class in the early stages of the style. Karate, warfare, law enforcement and fighting systems were the primary business of the warrior class and not the peasant class. Peasants, who often had to perform manual labor for 18 hours a day to pay taxes to the upper classes and sustain themselves, did not have the energy, time or financial resources to practice the warrior arts. The warrior class, however, which was sustained by peasant taxes, could afford the luxury of sending the firstborn male child of a warrior family to be trained in tea and other warrior arts. Okinawan documents will often state that karate was only practiced by the Pechin. However, there are early 20th century Japanese documents that mention this secret fighting style as being practiced by the peasants of Okinawa. The disconnect often comes from Japanese ignorance of the Ryūkyūan caste system and at times seeing Okinawans as inferior Japanese. Though, around the time of the creation of the Okinawa prefecture, the Pechin were calling themselves samurai. The word derives from the Japanese term samurai. Shoshin Nagamine states in his book The Essence of Okinawan Karate-Do, on pg. 21, the forbidden art was passed down from father to son among the samurai class in Okinawa. The Okinawa prefectural government in recent years has tried to clarify misunderstandings by the West as to the history and development of karate in Okinawa. The Okinawa prefectural government English and Japanese website, Karate and Martial Arts with Weaponry, states that karate was a secret of the Pechin. Okinawan-te was practiced exclusively among the Ryūkyū or Okinawan feudal scholar officials. Pechin peasants were strictly prohibited from practicing of being taught these secret unarmed fighting techniques.